Well, hello everyone. We're back this week with another vlog. The three of us.
We're back.
Bryce, Carrie, Susanna. And we're just going to jump into the conversation, and we're continuing this conversation off of Monday's blog post, which was about leaders who don't provide opportunities to serve.
Which was a bit negative.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit negative.
It was a negative perspective. Here's the harm that leaders can do when they don't provide opportunities to serve.
Right.
And today we'd like to take a more positive approach.
Yeah, which I think will be good. And, you know, when we talk about leaders, I think there's lots of different directions that we can go and different things we can talk about. But in this vlog, we really want to focus in on how leaders in the church can facilitate spiritual growth.
Yes.
I think so. But I also think another thing that we need to be careful about is, and we want to emphasize to our audience, is that we believe that spiritual growth is our personal responsibility. Like
Absolutely.
It falls on us primarily.
Mm-hmm.
I like what you said earlier. You said that we don't have the right to play the victim card.
Okay.
That it's our personal responsibility to grow spiritually. I mean, our walk with God is a personal thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't blame others if we're not growing spiritually.
Right.
Right.
On the other hand,
Well, I also think it's really easy to be very critical of leaders.
very easy.
And to put the blame on leaders.
Okay.
And I think leaders have a hard job, especially in the church. And helping people grow spiritually is tough. And that's hard. And so, you know, we're thankful for leaders who
Good.
work and do that. And it's easy to be critical and put the blame on them. So it is our responsibility to grow spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
But I do also think that it is important for leaders in the church to help encourage our spiritual growth.
Well, absolutely. I think the scriptures teach that.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think one of the ways that we can do that, and this is kind of the solution that I think we want to offer throughout this video, is that one of the ways we believe leaders can really step in and help fill some of the void in all of this is by providing opportunities for us to serve and to use our gifts and to use the things that God has given us to serve people,
Good.
to serve the people that are around us.
Good.
Yeah.
One way that growth occurs
Right.
is by serving others.
And it's just one. There's lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the one I think we're going to focus on probably mostly in this
Good.
video.
Dad, what would you say a leader's role is in some of this?
Well, I like what you said earlier, that it's a hard job. It's challenging. I mean, they wear many hats.
Yeah.
They fill many roles. But today, I think we should focus on this particular responsibility and privilege, and that is to equip Christians for service, to delegate, to facilitate their growth. But I like that word, equip.
I do too.
You know, their job is not to do everything themselves. Their job is to equip others to join the work with them.
Right. And I think that's an easy trap to fall into as a leader. Oh, well, I'll just do it myself and save myself some time, or I'm the only one who knows how to get it done, so I'll just do it myself. And that's a really easy habit to get into.
Yes, it is.
It's a lot harder to delegate a responsibility to someone else when you can do it yourself.
Right.
And when you think you might even do a better job.
Right.
But to train someone to take your place, to train someone to do a job, that's harder.
Yeah. Especially when you have the vision.
Yes. Well, now you bring up something else, which is a digression, Bryce. But you bring up something else, is that it's hard to cast a vision and then help people to own that vision.
Right.
Oh,
Rather than just having a vision in your own mind and going about it.
Right.
that is so important. That's so important. Well, some of this reminds me of the scripture in Ephesians. Ephesians 4:11 and 12. The gifts he gave were that some would be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ.
Good.
How does that fit into all of this?
Well, you notice the gifts in that passage were people. The gifts were actually people. Pastors, teachers, evangelists, apostles. And their role in that passage, their purpose was to equip the church for service. Not to do the service themselves,
Right.
but to equip others to do it.
Sounds pretty simple.
It does, but
Easier said than
it's a
done.
lot harder than it sounds.
That's true.
But that's what we're trying to emphasize today, is that a leader's role is to delegate, to facilitate, to equip,
Right.
to share the load, to
Right.
train people so that they can join the work.
You know, ministry work and leaders, you know, being a leader, that's people work.
It's people work.
It's people work. It's not always just about running a program or an organization or things like that. I mean, you work with people. You are a leader of people,
Right.
and a leader of the vision of that community, which is a big job.
It is a big job.
So not only is your job to have the vision, to cast the vision, to get people on board with the vision, but also to equip them in their various roles
Bingo.
to fulfill the vision.
That's right.
And when I think about that, I actually think about Acts chapter 6. We were talking about that earlier in connection with all of this.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I like the way you started it better.
Well, you know, you're right. Acts chapter 6 is the story of the Meals on Wheels program in Jerusalem that was failing.
Right. Somebody's car broke down.
Somebody's car broke down. Some of the widows were being neglected. And so the 12 came to the church and said, here's what we need to do. We need to find 7 men who are full of the Spirit and full of faith and have a good reputation, and let them solve this problem.
Right.
And what they said was, we will devote ourselves to the ministry of the Word and to prayer. We will teach the Word and we will continue praying. We can't do everything.
Right.
We need other people to take care of this problem. And so they asked for the church. Well, they're equipping people and they're training people and they're sharing the load.
Right. And I think that's so important to be able to share that load.
You know, Bryce, in the business world, I think that's called division of labor. I'm not a businessman, but I think that's what they call that. You've got to divide the labor. If you try to do everything yourself, not only will you fail and burn out, but people that you're trying to work with will feel unneeded, unwanted, unappreciated.
Yeah. It can definitely turn people off, I think.
Well, and let's pull in a little bit of culture today. That really, if you're running something, you can't really do anything without networking in today's culture, I don't think. I think that goes for leaders in the church. I don't think you really can accomplish some things without getting people on board.
Yes.
Delegating, networking, using people's gifts. I mean, you can't.
So I think if we were going to kind of wrap this discussion, this part of our discussion up, I mean, leaders are here to empower others, to empower people to do the work, to encourage others to do the work. That's one big thing, because not only do you get tired as a leader, but sometimes your workers get tired. So to encourage them and keep them moving, but to also set them up in the right places. So I think maybe the big question that comes out of all of this is what has to happen for leaders to be able to delegate more. You know, that's one of the things that we're advocating here is that leaders delegate and equip and encourage. But what has to happen for a leader to be able to do that?
Well, can we start by saying this, Bryce, that leaders must be willing to delegate.
Okay, that's fair.
That they can't feel like that they have to do everything themselves. They must be willing to delegate. And by the way, I want to say right here that includes delegation to everybody in the church.
Definitely.
They must be willing to delegate responsibilities to women.
Ooh.
And by the way, I do believe that most of the churches, in my experience, could do a better job of delegating responsibilities to women. I think women can do a whole lot more in our churches than they are doing now.
For sure.
And that's just my experience I'm talking about. I think they need to be willing to delegate more responsibilities to women, but also to singles,
Yes.
Big time.
to young married people that don't have children,
Yes.
Right.
to senior Christians. You know, again, in my experience, I think we lean heavily on married couples with children.
With kids, big time.
And there are others in the church who are gifted, who can handle responsibilities. And I'm talking about women and singles and senior Christians. And let me just preach a little sermon here. I mean, I feel strongly about this.
What?
Agree,
I think you're-
100%.
So there needs to be a willingness to delegate responsibility.
For sure.
Definitely.
For sure. Because there are so many people with abilities that get overlooked.
I agree.
And
Oh, we
Drives me
miss
crazy.
out on so many people who could offer so much.
Yeah.
I think, and that's the big one. That is where it starts. You have to be willing to give up some of those responsibilities.
Yes.
I think you have to be willing to get to know people and not just their Facebook profiles or their Twitter handles or whatever. You've got to really know the people and who they are.
Well, you've got to know
Huge.
what their gifts are,
Right.
and you've got to be able to trust them. You know, you're not going to give them responsibility until you're willing to trust them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which means, as you say, you've got to get to know them.
Mm-hmm. Again, leadership is people work,
Yes.
and you need to get to know people. In getting to know people too, you also get to know the needs
Mm-hmm.
of people, and a lot of times you get to know the needs of maybe a community of faith,
Sure.
which can help you facilitate spiritual growth in a better way.
I think what you might be saying too is there are times when leaders need to make decisions in the conference room, but there are also times when they need to get out of the conference room and get involved in the lives of people.
Right.
Yes.
And they know that. That's not new. They know that. It's awfully hard to balance time in the conference room and time in the presence of people, but that's what needs to happen.
It is. And it's something you just have to make a conscious effort at. You have to
Yeah.
really put forth the effort to make it happen. And I think we also need to say in this that it's getting to know everybody in your church. Because I think it's really easy to find a place where you fit in and you feel comfortable.
And you stay there,
And you
feel comfortable.
stay right there.
Yeah.
And I think not only are we challenging ourselves to get out of the conference room or get out of the meeting room or whatever, but to get out of our comfort zone.
Good.
To go meet somebody on the other side of the auditorium that we don't necessarily sit by all the time or that's not a part of our small group.
Yeah. Invite someone out to lunch.
There you go.
To get better acquainted with someone. To look for a responsibility that you can give to that person and say, go after it. Go for it.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Take charge of it and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Serve.
That's big.
So I think that's one thing they can do is just get involved. I like that comment. Get involved in the lives of people.
Mm-hmm. What else? We have get to know people and their abilities.
Trust people.
We talked about trusting people. You want to elaborate more on that?
Well, I think too, once we trust people, we need to be willing to give them the authority to carry out their responsibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more depressing and stressful than having a responsibility but not really having the authority to follow through on it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, leaders need to be willing to give authority
Mm-hmm.
that is commensurate with that responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So let's wrap this up
Okay.
because this is getting long, and let's do a little overview
All right.
of what we talked about to
Sounds
recap.
good.
Okay.
I like that.
All right.
Overview it, Dad.
Well, in short, we're saying that leaders need to do all they can to facilitate the growth of individual Christians. And one way they do that is by providing opportunities for service. And the way to do that is to get to know people, to learn to trust them, to identify their gifts and plug them into kingdom work where they are qualified to serve, to not do the job all by yourself, but to share the load and to let others work. Is that what we've been saying? Yeah.
I think so.
I think so. And we're going to say it again just because I think we probably need to. That we don't have all the answers. We know being a leader is hard.
I think what we want our viewers to know about this conversation is that what Bryce said, we don't have all of the answers. We don't want to come across as arrogant know-it-alls because we don't have all of the answers. And we're only sharing our perspective.
Right.
You know, we haven't sat in some leadership positions in the church, but from our perspective, we think this is something that could help the church for leaders to delegate more, to share responsibilities, and to delegate responsibilities to all of the people in the church.
Right. To help people use the gifts that God gave them.
Yeah, right.
Put them in.
And by using them, that's how they will grow.
That's right.
And that's how the church will grow too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Even better.
That's scripture again. When every member of the body does its part, That's Ephesians 4, isn't it, Susanna? When every member of the body does its part, it builds itself up in love. That's how the church grows, when every member of the body has a role to play. Got to roll up your sleeves, get busy. Sitting in a pew is not the answer. No, there's got to be more than that.
We'll
Peace
see you
out.
next time.
Bye-bye.